Hello everyone, welcome to today's event. We gathered here today in the middle of Ljubljana Pride Festival 2025, so welcome everyone. It's going to be the event called Enacting Justice. Throughout this week, we've been sitting together with you, the audience, reflecting about different elements that particularly today impact LGBTIQ+ community disproportionately in a negative way. So on Monday, we were discussing together the impact of technologies, things like the AI, algorithms, and other kind of harmful digital tools. Yesterday, we had a panel here in Pritličje where the discussion was about the role of media, journalists, ethical codex in journalism, and so on. And today, we have a topic in front of us that is one of the most crucial topics. Because when we talk about enacting justice, and concretely what we've invited our guests to also share with us, it's going to touch about the experiences of hate speech and hate crimes that the LGBTIQ+ community faces both here in Slovenia as well as on international level. And without further ado, I'm very happy and very honored to welcome our guests among us and to hand over the microphone to Barbara Reigel, our moderator and long-term activist and associate of Ljubljana Pride. So, Barbara.
Thank you. Welcome also in my name and in name of Bar Pritličje. It's in English ground floor. It's LGBT-friendly bar. And we just celebrated 10 years last year. So, as Simona said, the discussion will highlight the current situation of incidents, violence and hate crimes against LGBTIQ+ people in Slovenia and also in Europe. Together with our guests, we will interpret the results of ENACT project, which is being implemented in Slovenia by Peace Institute. And we will take a deeper look into the violent incidents that took place in Slovenia in 2023 and 2024, before, during and after the Pride Parade. And with our guest from Lithuania, we will discuss trends in the international context and focus on responses and strategies to support victims and implement justice. So my name is Barbara Reigel. I am a lawyer by profession. I teach legal subjects at the Faculty of Social Sciences, and I'm a long-term activist, as Simona said. I'll be moderating this panel, and my guests are from my left, Monica. Could you? Okay. Thanks a lot. She is a legal advisor at the National LGBT Rights Organization in Lithuania. We are very happy to have you here. Thank you for coming. Maja Ladic, she is a researcher at the Peace Institute in Slovenia. This is one of the only actually private research institution in Slovenia, and she is a coordinator of ENACT project. And Eva Gračanin, she's associate of the Pride Parade Association, and she's a project manager of the Safe to Parade project. I think it's the second year now that you are implementing this project before and during the Pride Parade, which is, of course, this Saturday. So if I start with Eva, please could you explain us a little bit about the trends increasing violence in the recent years? It's extremely worrying how the trend, and what do you think how the trend reflects the Slovenian situation, and also how does it reflect in the organization of Ljubljana Pride Parade?
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for inviting me to speak in this panel. Yeah, I will focus just on Pride parades or the festival of the Pride parade in Ljubljana in this answer, because if I want to talk broadly, I would be here. We would be here until tomorrow. So the Ljubljana Pride Association is a long-standing organizer of the Ljubljana Pride. The Pride itself and also the festival that precedes the Pride. And in particularly in 2023, they have recorded and experienced a surge in violence, in threats, hate speech, intimidating violence, attacks. And what was even worse and what appalled them was that the police reaction was inadequate, that the people who have experienced this type of violence felt that the police was unsupportive, even discouraging them from recording the incidents. And also even 3 days after this surge in violence in 2023 at the Pride Parade in Ljubljana, the political elite did not really respond to it, although it was really a huge surge. And at least, the only people who have said something in the public were the President of the Republic and the President of the National Assembly. Both of them are women. You decide if this is an important piece of information or not. So after 3 days, Ljubljana Pride decided that together with other LGBTIQ+ organizations and human rights organizations, they will go public with this statement about how the police handled the situation and how the political elite handled the situation, or did not handle the situation in this case. And afterwards, they decided that it would be best to really be proactive when it comes to intensifying the relations with the police in order to make sure that this surge of violence does not happen in 2024. So in 2024, Ljubljana Pride, together with the police, decided that they will coordinate and train safe persons. So I'm one of the safe persons also this year. I was one of the safe persons at the Ljubljana Pride last year. We are specially trained persons. We offer support to people who have experienced any type of hate-motivated incident at the Pride Parade, before it or after it. So they can report to us. We are also there the whole time on Saturday during the Pride Parade, so they can come to us, we listen to them, we offer them support, and we explain to them what it means if they want to report the incident to the police, what they can expect. And then also we can accompany them to the police station and also offer them support there. So this is one of the things that we did together with the police. So train and organize safe persons. Then the police decided to increase the number of police officers present at the Ljubljana Pride. They also decided that they will have a mobile point where people could record the incidents. So they can really go there, not to the police station in the city center, but to that point. And they usually assure us that the police officers that are there at this point are informed about hate-motivated incidents, so that they know that it is also important that they record the so-called bias indicators, so that this wasn't just somebody spitting in somebody, it wasn't just somebody throwing water or tear gas or beer at somebody, this was at the Pride Parade. So this is something that indicates that the motive for this was hate towards LGBTIQ+ people. And it's very important that they know that hate-motivated incidents are not just incidents directed to a specific person, but they are really sending a message to the whole community, to the whole social group. So the consequences of such incidents are much larger than just me having a quarrel at Pritličje with somebody I don't like and that person doesn't like also me. It's about really having really deep social consequences, and we can also discuss this. And then we also had, the Ljubljana Pride hired many more security guards, and they hired and trained more reditelji. So these are not security guards, but people who are responsible for order at the event. So they are not security guards, they don't have the same authorizations as security guards, but they are there and they decide and they say to the police, please come here and take care of this. Security guard, please come here and take care of this. So these are, we call them reditelji. I've tried to find the English word for it. It was not possible. The only thing that came up was marshal, and I said, no, we don't have any badges. So it's just this person that Ljubljana Pride trains and hires so that they make order at the Pride Parade itself. Then we also had a list of suggestions for the attendees of the Pride Parade, what they can do themselves to be safe. And it's not about victim blaming, so if you don't do this, then it's your own fault that you were, for example, attacked or experienced an incident. No, it's just a list of suggestions. If you are wondering, what can I do as an individual attending the Pride Parade to feel safe, to make everybody else feel safe? So we have made that list. We have also made a list of organizations that can offer psychosocial support to victims or people who have survived any type of violence. We have made a list of legal support and where they can obtain it. So a lot of information for those who are attending the Pride Parade. And we have also created an online questionnaire, an online form. If people don't want to report the incident to the police, they can report it to this online questionnaire, online form. So we know what was going on. We can also then, if they leave us their contact, support them, whatever they want for the support. And we also can then analyze this data. And we can see where the majority of incidents happen, who are the perpetrators, where we have to work even closer with the police to overcome this surge of violence during the Pride parades. I think I've answered, yeah, I think I did.
Eva focused on the Pride Parade, and Maya, you did research on capacity of civil society organizations to support victims of LGBT hate crimes. Could you explain us a little bit? I think you did a lot of interviews and field work. What were the main findings? It was, I think the research was done last year and this year, and it's a project that you cooperate, you two from Slovenia and Lithuania and a few other countries, Italy and Spain. Yes.
Now? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Barbara. I was just going to say that actually Monica and I work on the same EU project, and this is the second one, right? So maybe we can compare also a little bit the research we did 3 years ago. That project focused on hate crime victims in general, based on all personal grounds. And this project that we work on now focuses specifically on anti-LGBTIQ plus hate crime victims. But I will come to that. So our research report is so long that I was really trying to, pick out what to mention today because, like Eva said, otherwise we can sit here until tomorrow. But maybe one thing that I think I have to point out is that the legal framework in Slovenia seems to be let's say, one of the most progressive ones in Europe, when we talk about LGBTIQ plus rights and when we talk about hate speech, hate crime legislation. But then there's the big gap between the legal framework and the practice, the implementation, and the challenges that still remain in practice, which are very often the prosecution of hate crime. And that this came out in many of the interviews, also many of the discussions, events that we have, that even in those cases when the police does their part of the job, often cases are stuck, if I can say that unprofessionally, are stuck at the prosecution's offices. So this does seem to be one of the issues that we should focus on in Slovenia. Then a very important thing that the research, this one and the previous one, shows is the lack of trust in public institutions. And I think this goes for all of our countries where we did the same type of research, especially lack of trust in police, which is also, you know, what is the cause and what is the consequence, but this is also one of the main reasons often for people not to report. So we also have the issue of underreporting, not only in Slovenia, but also in other countries, even though we are talking about the increase of violence, increase of attacks. On the other hand, we still have the problem of underreporting or people not reporting, and inadequate police response. Even though the situation in Ljubljana might be specific due to long-term cooperation between LGBTIQ plus organizations and the police, it's not so in other cities in Slovenia, but also people have shared their bad experiences with the police also in Ljubljana. And what I mean by inadequate or bad response from the police is that they treat hateful incidents, so not just hate crime, but also other attacks or incidents that happen with this motive of hate towards LGBTIQ plus community. They treat these incidents as vandalism, disturbance to public order, theft or robbery or whatever else. So there is a problem of adequately recognizing and dealing with hate crime as hate crime. Eva already mentioned the bias indicators that we think should be included in the forms of the reports that the police officers that work on the street, right, and they're the first ones to write the reports. Those indicators should be there, obligatory, so they cannot skip them, ignore them, they cannot pretend, so they would have to at least tick some boxes. Was it skin color? Was it a gay pride? Was it, because there obviously are very clear bias indicators that could, you know, strongly support hate crime case, which then at the level of prosecution would be crucial. Because this is on the other side. I was criticizing the prosecution, the prosecutors at the beginning. What they say often is that we deal with what we get from the police. So if they don't identify the motive, the hateful motive, then how are we supposed to do that? You know, if we don't have the notes of the police that the perpetrator said specifically these words, or the incident happened specifically at the Pride parade, or things like that. Yeah, I will try not to be too long, so I will just pick out maybe some of the more important issues that we've identified. Intersectionality is still very much overlooked. I mean, it's really inappropriate to search for more vulnerable among the vulnerable, or, you know, to talk about which victims are more vulnerable than the other victims. But definitely we would need to pay much more attention to the intersectionality, because obviously there are people that are being attacked for several personal grounds, not just one, and they do have even a lot more problems then. And I will finish with this one. Even though from our research, this one and the previous one, like 3 years ago, it somehow turned out that the LGBTIQ plus victims of hate crime would actually have the best chances of receiving good support, at least from the NGO sector, at least from the LGBT organizations, not so much from the state institutions, but compared to other hate crime victims, it seems that this is the strongest, I don't like the word sector, but I guess, you know, here the NGOs are the most professionalized. There are quite many LGBTIQ plus organizations in Slovenia, quite many that actually provide support to victims. So other hate crime victims, and I don't want to list all of them, but I don't know, Roma or asylum seekers, refugees, or I don't know, covered Muslim women, do not even get such support as LGBTIQ plus hate crime victims could get in Slovenia or can get. Maybe I finish here.
Thank you. Monica, you are coming from Baltic state, from Lithuania, because I'm not so well, I don't have a lot of knowledge about your country and the legal framework, and I would like to ask you first, in last 3 years in Slovenia, we did a lot of steps in the legal framework. Based on the constitutional court decisions, we got equal marriage, possibility to joint adoption, and also equal artificial insemination of lesbian or even women that don't have a partner. Could you explain us a little bit about your country? Because I saw on the webpage of your NGO that you had a great pride parade last week. It was 20,000 people there. It was Baltic Pride. You said when we talked that you have a national pride, but also Baltic Pride as a community event of all 3 countries, or even more. 3. So could you explain us a little bit for the context of your country? You know, we are not so, yeah.
Well, it's an honor to be here, of course. When it comes to our Baltic Pride success, it also stems from, from our community's motivation, actual motivation to come to Pride because of the lack of legal development safeguarding LGBTIQ rights. For example, we do not have family equality at all in Lithuania. We do not have any kind of regulations that protect children in LGBTIQ families. So of course it creates a huge motivation to actually show up. For us it creates motivation to gather support for Pride. So of course this comes as a part of our success, of our Baltic Pride success. When it comes to other Baltic states, Estonia and Latvia, well, with Latvian situation, they recently adopted partnership regulation, but it leaves a lot to be desired. It's mostly comes as a absolute legal minimum when it comes to LGBTIQ families support. But Estonia did introduce marriage equality quite recently, so of course we are doing much better. Also, we are a smaller country. We are ourselves small, but we are even smaller. So of course the Pride there is not as large as ours. So when it comes to Pride itself, well, last week we had these 20,000 people, and returning back to the topic of this panel, well, incident-wise, there were no huge incidents. There were some incidents with eggs involved, but otherwise we were doing great. And also we registered quite a few threats, like verbal threats to participants, but that's about it. Otherwise, it was very peaceful. So yeah, we do not have a lot of violent incidents, especially during Pride. However, we do have incidents happening on the individual basis. And just as Slovenia, we do have quite an advanced, on paper, quite an advanced hate crime legislation. But unfortunately, that does not always translate into practice very well. So, for example, intersectionality is not recognized. For example, if you are a gay Roma person or a gay asylum seeker who was threatened or experienced other forms of hatred, you know, the hate incident in the official registry, we do have that. It will be registered either as a xenophobic crime, hate crime, or anti-LGBTIQ hate crime. So there goes it when it comes to, you know, practice. So again, it does not translate in a very good practice. Also, I always say that, you know, having perfect legal documents, they do not really also guarantee good support for people who actually experienced anti-LGBTIQ hate crime. For example, in our case, we have over 20 victim support mechanisms in Lithuania, but there are no specialized funded, state-funded support mechanism for particularly LGBTIQ hate crime victims. So that is a huge problem. And also another huge, and I would say the biggest problem is that victim directive is not implemented in a way that hate crime victims are referred to these existing hate crime victim support mechanism. That is a huge issue and a very, I would say, bureaucratic issue, because our representatives of the police, they say that, oh, it's a matter of GDPR, which is completely insane. They need to fill extra form just to refer the victim to the support mechanism. And it's a bit too hard for them, apparently. So the victims do not get official support they need. And NGO sector mostly assist hate crime victims in terms of legal assistance, basic legal assistance, but not psychological support, which is very much needed for hate crime victims. So I would say in our case, the much bigger issue is actual victim support, not the legislation. If legislation would be implemented sufficiently, there would be much less issues. When it comes to statistics, last year there were 33 incidents involving anti-LGBTIQ bias. So it sounds very little, 33, right? But that's only the official statistics. The real situation is quite different. We do provide alternative reporting platform for LGBTIQ people, but even that does not, you know, provide a full picture of the extent of anti-LGBTIQ hate crime.
Do you experience any counter-protests at the Pride parades? Because it's getting very normalized in Slovenia. This kind of violence, I would say it's legal to counter-protest, but still, you know, it's something that's very normal, getting very normal. Yeah.
Actually, Eva mentioned this reditele. Yeah, in our case, we actually hire private security service too, and it costs us money, a lot of money just to hire it, but we do it, we are obligated. And also police is all, you know, pretty much recruited to work on prides. and they are doing a decent job. I don't have, you know, a lot of complaints because there were no violent incidents this year and last year and a year before. But when it comes to protests, this year police informed us that there were supposed to be 3 counter-protests, so we were quite concerned about these, you know, because you never know, you know, of the extent of those protests, what will happen there. But this year there were like a few people, like, I don't know, 30 people who just standed there and prayed. So if anyone wants to pray for gays, you know, so go on. So I don't care, to be honest. So yeah, so it was very peaceful. It was quite peaceful and with no violent incidents, thankfully. But also we do invest a lot of time and effort just to be very engaged with the police, just to be very engaged with the private security to counteract any possible, you know, issues. But also this year there is an oncoming trend to recruit underage people to sort of provoke the participants. So I think it's like a Russian-style thing to do, but yeah, there is a new trend. So this year, although we did not have any kind of violence, there were a few underage people recruited especially to try to throw eggs on the participants, and there were 2 people affected by the eggs. So.
Maya, you wanted to add something?
I just wanted to add that, yes, this is also one of the issues that the research shows in Slovenia, that very often the attackers, the perpetrators are minors, teenagers, boys mostly, or almost exclusively boys. So yes, this is an issue, I guess, and I think it's well thought of and organized. Also, probably
Definitely.
It's not just a coincidence.
I think these kids, they come from more vulnerable maybe backgrounds, and they get often paid to provoke. So that is how it goes.
I was just thinking that I take counter-protests, it's legitimate and legal, but now that I'm thinking what in Maribor happened, they were shouting, you are not normal. That's maybe not legal, actually, and we need to think about also about the content of the protest, not just of the form. Eva, you were also in Maribor. How do you assess this year's situation there? Because in Maribor, maybe you don't know, they have Pride every 2 years, not actually every year, but and you were a safe person and a manager of the group there as well. How did you see it? And yeah.
The Pride Parade in Maribor happened this Saturday, so the past Saturday. So I haven't really had the chance to analyze everything. So what I'm gonna now say are just some kind of moments which I remember right now. So it's not gonna be very coherent. I apologize for that, but yeah, so this year for the first time, because 2 years ago in 2022, also in Maribor, they experienced a surge in violence when they were organizing and implementing the Pride Parade in Maribor. So Ljubljana Pride decided that they will support the organizers in Maribor, so the Youth and Cultural Center Maribor, MKC Maribor for those of you who speak Slovene, and support them by bringing their safe persons. And we were lucky that we got that most of the safe persons except me were actually from Maribor or the surrounding area, so locals. And I think that was important, because when it comes to streets in Maribor, or where the nearest police station is, or where to turn to, where is the best way to, you know, direct the mass of people in case anything should happen, I would be clueless. So I was very happy that we had safe persons that were actually local. What I did experience is that a lot of the people who came were actually organized groups of civil society organizations, a lot of activists, so people who are empowered, And the counter protest, which was pushed by the police to the edge of the venue, so this square in the center of Maribor, was pushed back, but you could hear them chanting really loudly different hateful words. And I know people were not comfortable with that, although the people on the stage of the Pride Parade were trying to really overpower their chants. The interesting information I got from the organizers just yesterday when I spoke to one of them is that the minors who were part of this anti-protest, right, they were actually self-organized. At least that's one of them claims that. So that their intention was, but the police then kind of merged them together so they could control them better. And you could really see in a way that those who were older were covered. So their faces were covered, and you could see the 12-year-olds, the 13-year-olds, the 14-year-olds, the 15-year-olds. They were all not covered, really. So this person who contacted the organizers said that they actually were self-organized and were not really part of that hateful group of older men. Yeah, this is how I perceived them, older men with the banner and who were really loud in chanting. If this is true, I'm not sure, but it's worrying for me that basically children are part of counter-protests. And one of the, because it was a small Pride Parade, so 350 people. So one of the attendees of the Pride Parade was a professor at the local high school, and she recognized her pupils there in the counter-protests and went there to talk to them. So it is worrying. I don't know why so young, these young boys are coming to this counter-protest. I don't want to speculate. This is something I think we need to research. Otherwise, yes, they were quite bold because they entered the cafe where the organizers hosted kind of a dinner for all the volunteers who were organizing the Pride Parade. So they entered the cafe, they threw water at the participants of this dinner, but the police came in because the organizers went out and got the police, and they filed a report. So, and also after the Pride Parade, we received a report that a group of 14-year-olds, so again, very, very young people, were attacked by their by another group of 14-year-olds from their school. So they know who the perpetrators are. They threw firecrackers at them, spitted at them, and shouted hateful words at them. So they know who the perpetrators are, but they are afraid to report it to the police. So we are still working with another safe person who's based in Maribor to support these children to file a report and try to work with the parents, at least those parents who are aware of who their children are and where they were. But it's for me, it's a new situation. So dealing with people who are under 15, who are both perpetrators and people who have experienced this type of violence.
I think it's a very concerning trend that, you know, in the past 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, right, they are known for being, let's say, more open, more inclusive, and so on and so forth. But my colleagues, I myself, I'm not a social scientist, I'm a lawyer, but my colleagues, they speak about re-emerging of ultra-traditionalist narratives among the youngest generation, which is quite, it reflects on what we are saying about, you know, people being against prides or something like that. So it's a very worrying trend, and it needs really to be addressed by both academia and institutions.
Can I add just something? something I wanted to add when I was answering my first question is that a lot of the times people say, oh, you just spitted at them, they threw a firecracker at them, they just shouted hateful words, they just pulled on the rainbow flag they had on their backpack or something like that. So they did not hit them, cut them, shoot them. But I say, this is also somebody is interfering with your bodily integrity. It's bad. It's bad. It's not just slaps and cuts and bruises. It's really bad because they are really in your personal space, and they are really inciting fear and hatred, and people feel threatened. People feel that they are not welcome anymore anywhere. And a lot of the young people say, maybe this is my last Pride parade. So I always say, if you think that only slaps and cuts and bruises are something that needs to be reported to the police, no. Throwing a firecracker, spitting at somebody and saying hateful words is something that is really interfering with your bodily and also psychological integrity. So that's something I really would like to stress, point out.
Coming back to the victims of LGBT hate crimes and hate speech, through your research, you found also not just the reasons for the crimes, but also some basic needs that victims have during the process, after the process. What are, could you highlight a little bit on this topic?
Now it works? Okay. I don't know why I was surprised 3 years ago when we did the first round of research, because it actually goes for all hate crime victims, not just LGBTIQ plus victims, that the most basic need for all of them was to be heard and taken seriously. First, and by far the most important one, because most of the victims that we interviewed had to persuade first the police officers to even recognize the hate motive and the crime, and then to write notes, and then to proceed with the procedures. Because very often people were either not taken seriously or discouraged from reporting, either with reasons such as you don't have proof, nothing was on camera, you know, nothing's gonna happen, so it's more of a hustle for you, so better not just do it, not do it. Or it also happened that people were empowered enough to do it, and then it happened several times that they were asked by the police to drop charges, not to harm the minors, the teenage perpetrators who still have their whole lives ahead of them. But you know, if you continue with the procedures, they're gonna have the police record. So even cases like this still happen in Slovenia. And it happened last year, for example, or 2 years ago. And the person that I interviewed actually said, of course I dropped charges. What was I supposed to do? I mean, I really don't want anything bad to these boys, you know, to have their futures ruined just because I pressed charges. So, yeah. Another need that is, yeah, obvious, but that was emphasized by every single victim was the need to feel safe and the need for safe spaces, which people often do not have, or we as a society do not have, especially, for example, shelters or crisis centers for victims, specifically for LGBTIQ plus victims, because, for example, even the, how do we call them, safe houses that we have for victims of domestic violence, for example, trans women are not accepted in those safe houses. So there is a need for safe space. Another two needs that I would point out, one is the need to have access to either free or affordable legal representation, because very often people cannot afford to pay lawyers, and then that is the reason that they do not press charges and go through with the procedures. And the other thing is access to good either psychosocial or psychological or even psychiatric support, because mainly victims share that they rely on NGOs that provide psychosocial support, that this is the main source of the support that they get. Again, criticizing the public institutions, the state institutions. I don't know what Monica mentioned before. The Victims Directive. I wanted to add that in Slovenia, when the EU Victims Directive was implemented in the national legislation, it was decided that the social work centers are going to be the ones that are supposed to provide support to victims. In both of our research that we did, nobody from the victims heard about this or knew that they could turn to social work centers for support as victims of hate crime. So I guess we need to work on that. And another thing that the victims, almost all of them, pointed out was that they need, if they decide to report, to press charges, they really need to feel like they, together with the support system that they get, are stronger than the perpetrators, and that nothing bad or nothing worse will happen to them if they decide to report and go through with the procedures. So very often they do not have this feeling that, you know, the whole world is behind them, that they have the support. So this is also one of the needs that I would point out. I'll stop here, not to be too long, but there were many
Monica,
more.
would you add something special for your country?
Well, in our case, the needs are that were vocalized by our target group, by people who suffered hate crime, were pretty much very similar. I can add, you know, that a safe space is, of course, a multi-level thing, but its foundation should be, you know, privacy. In our case, some victims reported, you know, that people that were not supposed to be there were participating during, you know, the victim statement and so on and so forth. For example, some staff came to change the light bulb. And yeah, when the police representative was collecting this victim statement. So we need to understand that it is a very traumatizing thing to even go to the police and relive, you know, the situation. So yes, the safe spaces is probably the most crucial element, and feeling that police truly listens to you. There are, for example, situations you probably in Slovenia probably it's the same, because when you need to rent a place, a housing, right? Theoretically, you cannot be discriminated. Right? So that's how it works, right? You cannot be discriminated in theory, right? But in practice, it's a different thing. For example, I have clients, a couple, same-sex couple, who really tried hard to rent a place because of discrimination they faced, especially as a gay couple. They faced a lot of, you know, prejudice, a lot of discrimination. Even as our organization, because we are very open with our name, our official name in the documents is Lithuanian Gay League, so you cannot hide with that name, right? So it's very hard sometimes to we suffer also as an organization discrimination from all the providers. But yeah, going back to this couple, they finally found a place to rent, quite a good place, but their neighbors were awful. They have been, for the lack of better word, terrorizing this same-sex couple. And there were various instances of vandalism and so on and so forth, but police did not take that seriously. It took too long for the process to start. We had, maybe over 50 reports against neighbors. And we sort of, as an LGBTIQ person, you need to sort of calculate what's better for you. What is the best, option right now, not in tomorrow, not in 5 years, but right now. So ultimately, they decided to simply find another place to stay, because they do not want to involve themselves in more proceedings, more victim testimonies. So, unfortunately, that's the uncomfortable truth of many of such instances.
But do you have capacities for strategic litigation in these cases? This is a good case to prove something or change something on systemic level.
Well, right now our strategic litigation efforts revolve around family rights recognition, because there are some individual cases that do not form a precedent, but they are successful. For example, a child is recognized to have two mothers. So, of course, our resources are not infinite, and sometimes you need to sort of try to find, you cannot sometimes find resources for all of such cases, with limited funding, with limited resources. But yes, we had one strategic litigation case that actually had a really resounding effect, and ultimately went to Strasbourg, European Court of Human Rights, and to this day it is well used. It is still not being implemented. We pushed far the Council of Europe for it not to close the supervision of that case. So we do have already, a precedent and a good case to push our authorities, but still it is not enough. We need more, definitely we need more such individual cases, but also to have this strategic litigation case, you need to find persons who want this. A lot of people do not want to, to be involved any further in the proceedings, but because it costs a lot of time, it costs a lot of, a lot of time just being uncomfortable. So a lot of strategic litigation success also rests on the actual victims.
Maya, you are a researcher of rights of different minorities, not just LGBT rights. Can you see any differences or similarities in strategies to support victims? And what could we learn from good practices from each other? And where do you see some kind of interconnection between these fights or between these supports? Does any minority have the support system or a part of the system that we could use in the LGBT movement and vice versa? What do you think?
First, I would say that basically all hate crime victims have similar needs, definitely. Also, the attacks, either verbal or physical, I could say are similar. Even the perpetrators, not only that they are similar, they are maybe the same people. That, all social minorities bother them, maybe just at different occasions. So at a certain time, it's migrants or refugees or Roma. especially in last 2 years in Slovenia. I guess, again, Roma are very present in the media as well. And then on other occasions, it's the LGBTIQ plus community that is to be blamed for all the problems in the country, especially in June when it's more visible, when a lot of events happen, and also the media report more about these events. So yes, many similarities definitely, but I do have to point out that from our research, it did seem that the LGBTIQ plus victims of hate crime or hate speech were the ones that were best informed, the most empowered or equipped. They knew their rights, they knew where to turn to, and I would actually point this group, if I have to pick one group, as an example of good practice, because it seems that the civil society organizations, the LGBTIQ plus organizations in Slovenia are doing a really good job for several years. Of course, nothing happens overnight. So this is, I would say, a result of many years. I mean, the LGBTIQ plus movement celebrated 40 years recently, no, in Slovenia, last year, yeah. So I would say this is the result of long-term engagement of the civil society in this field. So no, I do not have any better example of a support system than this. But if I have to pick something, let's say, from the public sector or from the state institutions that I constantly criticize, the one thing that seems to work well is the victim support service, I guess would be in English. And this is established for now only at District Court of Ljubljana and District Court of Maribor. All district courts should have this victim support service. And the idea, I guess, was to support all the victims, but for now, it seems that the victims that get this support are mainly victims of domestic or gender-based violence. But this could maybe be a good example of state institution providing direct support to victims. Should be broader. Support to all the victims, and it should be all over the country, not just in 2 largest cities. And since the NGOs, not only LGBTIQ plus NGOs, but also other NGOs that provide different types of support to other social minorities, are still the main the stabber pillar where people can turn to. I would say it's really the stable financing of these programs is crucial, because this is the most that people rely on.
It's interesting what you said, that the LGBT community is very good organized, but it was not always so. I was owner of a small LGBT friendly cafe open, and it opened in 2008. And in 2009 we had a Pride Parade week, and there was a literary evening, and skinheads came, 8 of them, and they attacked the cafe. It was small, 40 meters. And the first support mechanism was not the police, because we didn't know whether the police is our ally or not. And our first idea were anarchists, because we were so afraid, to stay in the space, because we needed men. you know, and anarchists were this powerful guys, and they were really, we really managed to make a really good relationship through then also in the other protests and so on. But now I think they don't have this much. The movement, anarchist movement, is not so strong anymore. So for us, it was extremely important to have allies in that moment, because the state was not an ally at that moment. Maybe before we open the floor to the audience, could you, Eva, explain us your plans for Saturday? You are our safe person. I'm safe person as well.
Yes, so 2 safe persons on the stage, yeah. So we have
yes.
other colleagues in the group, so there's 10 of us this year, which I'm very proud of. Last year there was 7 of us, this year 10 of us. So we are increasing in number, which is good. Because if I just go really, really swiftly to some of the outcomes of the analysis of 22 reported hate-motivated incidents from last year's Pride Parade here in Ljubljana. So we analyzed these 22 hate-motivated incidents that were reported to us via this online form that I've mentioned earlier. And as a result, we found out that almost half of these reported incidents happened, so 10 out of 22 happened between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. So just in 4 hours, you have to know that the Pride Day lasts from 10 in the morning until 5 in the morning the next day. So almost half of the incidents happened between 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And 80% of those incidents, of those 10 incidents, happened outside of official venues. So not at Park Zvezda, where the Pride Village was, so not in Kongresni Trg, where we have the program after the Pride Parade, but outside, in the streets nearby. So this is something very important, I think. So if you feel unsafe, please go to the official venue, okay? Because it's safer than the surrounding area of the official venue. And why between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m.? Because this is when the Pride Village is kind of ending and people are starting to move from the Pride Village in the city center, Park Zvezda, to Metelkova. You know Metelkova in Ljubljana. So people are scattered around Ljubljana, and this is where the perpetrators found it most convenient for them to perform attacks. So they were throwing eggs. So this is something international, I guess. So egg throwing, again, it can be hurtful. It's not nice that something like that, you know, falls on your body. And that's the least to say. I think it's a breach of your bodily integrity. They were throwing beer, tear gas, water, spitting, shouting, pulling off these rainbow flags from their backpacks. So there were a lot of this happening. So from 2 p.m. till 6 p.m. we have more than just 2 safe persons around Ljubljana, because we think that more safe persons means that we can really get more people to find us, to find safe space, to tell us, I hope this is not me. No, okay. To tell us what happened so we can support them to report the incidents not just to us, but also to the police, because we then have official records. So this is something that we are doing, something new to this year, so more safe persons at this crucial period of the day when we are expecting more such hate-motivated incidents. But otherwise, we are going as was also planned last year. So more police officers, more safety safeguards. No safeguards. Security guards. More reditali, for the lack of not finding an English word for it. And we are also handing out the leaflets with safety measures written on them, suggestions, how everybody for themselves can do something to feel safer. And we are also trying to really support people to report everything that happened even before the Pride Parade or the festival of the Ljubljana Pride. Not just on that day, or maybe also even after, because I think incidents that happen after can also be linked to the visibility during the Pride Parade. So that's something that we will also be doing this year, collaborating with the police. I have a direct line with the police officers who will be with the police officer who will be in charge of the group of the police officers. So I can call this person anytime. This is the deal we have. That's also very good all the time. What else? And we will also be informing people that the police officers who are, for example, in the Pride Parade, so walking with us, they don't really have the time or the capacity to take down reports of incidents, okay? Because they have to maintain order within the group of people who are marching to the streets of Ljubljana. So it's very important that people know that it's not because they don't want to, it's because they have other work to do. So it's important that they find us. We will be wearing white t-shirts, or that they find the mobile point, police point for reporting, which will be near the Kongresni trg, Vegova ulica. That's important to know. And even if you find a police officer, they will point you to where you can report your incident, either to us or to the police. So this is something important that you also know, and tell people that we'll be coming with you to the Pride Parade, because we want this Pride Parade to be, regardless of the violence happening, something that we can all enjoy, feel safe, celebrate our diversities, and come back next year.
Thanks a lot for this information and the guidelines. We have time for one or two questions, or a comment, if anyone.
Hi, thank you. I had a question for, I think, Maya and Monica. I was wondering about the research you were talking about. So it was research into hate crimes across a few countries, I understood. I was wondering which countries exactly were involved, how you conducted the research, which data was gathered, whether you gathered your own data or went on to other data. Maybe, I don't know, data from, for example, Fundamental Rights Agency, who did the LGBTIQ+ survey again in 2023. I'm just a bit curious for details about the research.
I can start, and then Monica, you add. This is usually what bores people the most. That's why I totally skipped this part, the methodology. You know? So the countries involved are Spain, Italy, Slovenia, Hungary, Lithuania, and Greece. 6, right? Yes. So we were partners in the previous project, like I said, focusing on hate crime in general, and then this was the follow-up, because we, in that research, I think all of us found that LGBTIQ+ persons were the most, or one of the most at risk of becoming hate crime victims. And then the decision was, let's focus specifically on these victims. The research that all of us did in our countries, of course, first it was the desktop research, the legislation, legal institutional framework, and so on. We also, of course, did check the FRA reports, FRA research. We also actually work for FRA from Slovenia and some other partners from other countries. But then the main focus was on the field research. The interviews and the focus groups. I think in total we did something like 150 interviews, all of us together. In Slovenia we did 22, and I will let Monica then to add. So we did focus mostly on the field research and the information we got from the people. And there's also additional reason for that because of lack of statistics. Because in Slovenia, for example, officially we can only get data from the police about the cases. They only specifically register race and religion and nothing else. And also the big change, the revolution that happened in our prosecution system, I think in 2020 or 2022, was that the prosecutors started marking their files with a specific abbreviation, SOV, which means sovraštvo, hate. But that's all. It only says hate. It doesn't say based on which ground. So it's impossible to get statistics. So basically all of our research that we've done so far relies mainly on interviewing people, the victims and professionals that work with victims, including NGOs, including people that work in judiciary, in law enforcement, in state institutions and so on. You can add, Monica.
Well, in our case, the numbers of interviews were very similar to that of Slovenia, because we're smaller countries compared to our counterparts in Italy or Greece or Spain. But yeah, we also in Lithuania, as I said, we do have official hate crime statistics. We have a self-standing hate crime, which is the incitement of hatred, which means that hate speech is also criminalized on paper. So we do have quite elaborate statistics, and we push forward to also recognize gender identity. Sexual orientation is recognized, but we push forward our institutions to recognize gender identity as a self-standing ground too. And yeah, this, the results are also quite similar to that of Slovenia. And we also, when doing our desktop research, we also overviewed not only Fundamental Rights Agency results, but our national research results. For example, our Ministry of Interior, they did quite a good research on prosecutor and police representatives' views on hate crime victims and the victim aspects. And I think, the decisions and solutions, it always starts with recognition that concrete problem exists. And I see some positive, outcome of that Ministry of Interior research, because a lot of institutions, representatives and institutions, they recognized that LGBTIQ people are more likely to become victims of hate crimes. So it was an important research done by an institution.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, or do you have a question? Yes, here.
Hi, I don't know if I'm a bit sick, that's why, sorry. I wanted to ask about the ILGA map and the position of Slovenia being 17th, about the LGBTQ position of Slovenia in ILGA map. In Greece, we are in the 6th position, but as I'm here now, in Slovenia is here and Greece is here, based on how LGBTQ people is treated. Do you think that governments are implementing laws only to be in the hierarchy more and then don't do anything to implement them?
Eva wants to give a short answer.
Yes, short answer. I always turn off the microphone because I'm from that part of Slovenia where we are very, very mindful of resources, to be polite. So, yes, it's a very good question. And I think the tools such as the ILGA map, but not just the ILGA map, they usually look at what's written down in documents, in legal documents, in reports, which usually does not really necessarily reflect the everyday lives and lived realities of different people. So I would say that these tools such as the ILGA map are an indicator of what could be possible in a certain country, because we have the base is, you know, there. So we have the garden, but nothing really grows on it, or grows a little bit more badly than it was written. But Simona, I guess, has also the answer to this question.
Yeah, of course, but make it short, because we have a literary evening after this event.
Yeah, I want to comment, because I'm actually one of the people that inputs the data into the ILGA rainbow map for Slovenia. We are 3 organizations that get asked to input. Ljubljana Pride is in the last 1 or 2 cycles now included. And for me, the challenge with ILGA Europe Rainbow Map is what it measures, right? Because it measures LGBTIQ plus specific legislation in different areas. Slovenian problem very often is that the general legislation is not there. Or if the legislation is there, like we've heard, for example, that then it doesn't have any policy or action plans or implementation afterwards, right? So, you know, ILGA Europe map will measure, you know, and we will rank highly because we have now legal marriage equality, right? But on the other hand side, it doesn't measure the fact that if you are attacked you know, on the street as in terms of hate crime, that you do not have a proper procedure afterwards, you know, because we do have the penal code, and in the penal code there is a legal framework for understanding what is a hate crime or even hate speech. However, as we heard, there is no mechanisms to actually have even one single conviction in this country based on, you know, these same articles in the law when it comes to hate crime. Not single one, you know. So in that regard, and this Rainbow Europe map doesn't measure this part, right? So I think this is the point, that there is a higher level of certain legislation adopted when it comes to LGBTIQ plus, right? But then there is this fundamental things when it comes to violence and, you know, hate and anti-discrimination and so on, that is not working. And this is not measured in that way.
Thank you, Simona. Thank you to my guests and to audience. The advantage of having an event in the bar is that after the event finishes, the community starts to build. So I'll be very happy if you stay here, have a drink or not. You can, I think we have a young writer from Italy here after this event at 6:30. So I'm very happy that I was part of this interesting debate. I'll just wish you a happy Pride and a free Palestine.
Thank you.